And the much-anticipated meet between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping has concluded. Well, Biden addressed the media, detailing out the progress made between the two leaders. In a major outcome of the high-stakes meet, both the nations have agreed to resume military-to-military communications and also cooperate on anti-drug policies. Take a listen. Well, China earlier suspended military communication after former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan last year. U.S. and China's militaries have had a number of near misses and acrimonious exchanges over the past year. And now, with the resumption of ties between both the countries, they have agreed to resume military-to-military communications. Both the leaders have also agreed to cooperate in addressing the source of opioid fentanyl, a leading cause of drug overdoses in the United States of America. And under the agreement, officials say that China has to take steps to dramatically cut the production of ingredients for this very drug. Talks also touched upon other friction areas, including the Taiwan issue. Not toning down on this very issue, Xi told Biden to stop arming Taiwan, and that China's reunification with the self-ruled island was unstoppable. Biden responded by assuring Xi that Washington was determined to maintain peace in the region. And now, to get you more insights on this very highly anticipated meeting between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden, our VOA correspondent Jessica Stone is joining us live from San Francisco. Welcome to the broadcast, Jessica. Jessica, what are some of the outcomes of this highly anticipated meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping, which lasts for almost 4 hours? And the meeting comes amidst the war in West Asia, the issue of Taiwan, and so on.
Did you ask me about the outcomes? I couldn't hear.
Absolutely, Jessica. I'm asking about the outcomes of the highly anticipated meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping.
Okay, indeed, you've outlined many of them already, and you heard the president talking about the two signature ones that he certainly talked about repeatedly, which is this restoration of military-to-military communications, something that the U.S. went into this summit saying they wanted to restore those ties, particularly because during the spy balloon incident in February, when that was going through U.S. airspace, they say they could not reach China to discuss the matter, to find out where it was going, why it was there, and ultimately they just had to shoot it down over the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the other major outcome coming out of the talks that President Biden repeatedly talked about is this fentanyl precursor chemical deal. Basically, as it's been described to reporters by a senior administration official, this has to do with U.S. intelligence informing a Chinese prosecution or law enforcement about which companies are making those chemicals inside China and stopping them from doing so. So there is some sort of coordinating agreement as described by a senior administration official. We have yet to get more information or confirmation from the Chinese side about the nature of that. But President Biden very much talking about that because it has huge domestic implications for him. There is a large population throughout the United States that has been affected by the overdose deaths, including the president. He talked during the press conference about people that didn't live that far from him in Wilmington, Delaware, that had experienced this personally, where the overdoses by fentanyl of very young people, teenagers, young adults, are really overwhelming, and thousands of Americans have died. So it's something that he talked about at great length during this press conference. But on the Taiwan issue, I would quibble with the reporting that you just issued. I don't know where it came from, but with respect to Taiwan, all we have here at VOA right now is again, the senior administration official characterizing the conversation about Taiwan, in which President Xi Jinping, according to this official, telling President Biden that the military did not have any plans to invade Taiwan, despite what the U.S. had been told. And President Biden reiterating his call for peace and stability in the Taiwan Straits. So an interesting exchange. We'll have to get much more reporting about that and how all of that went down, because that, as President Xi described it, is the most dangerous, he said, issue in the U.S.-China relationship.
Right, Jessica, US President Joe Biden spoke about the issue of Taiwan and fentanyl being agreed with China. Shed some light on potential agreements between US and China as well.
I'm sorry, if you could repeat the question, I couldn't hear very well.
Right, Jessica, I was asking you if you could shed some light on potential agreements between US and China.
With respect to fentanyl, as I said earlier, that agreement is said to be, by a senior administration official, something on the order of U.S. intelligence about fentanyl production, the precursor chemicals which are made inside China, that the U.S. would alert Chinese officials to where those are being made, and Chinese officials would descend on that factory and curb the supply, essentially stop it from being made and certainly stop it from being transported. We don't have a great level of detail, but it seems that there's some agreement being reached between the U.S. and China where they will coordinate capturing and prosecuting the producers of these fentanyl precursors, the chemicals that go into fentanyl, which are pouring across the southern border of the United States and into the homes of American citizens.
Right, Jessica, my last question to you. If you can draw a comparison between the latest meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping in San Francisco to the one that took place in Bali last year.
Well, what I know is this. This meeting was said to be more than 4 hours long. We know that the last meeting in Bali, Indonesia was 3 hours long. Both of these leaders have made a number of promises to each other concerning areas where they can work together. What really remains to be seen is that in the case of Bali, that sideline meeting, almost immediately after they had that meeting, there were events between the two countries that changed what those leaders could actually execute on in terms of what they had promised to do. So we'll have to see not just what the promises were as articulated by each side, because we have yet to get the Chinese perspective on what was said in these meetings and what was promised and what they believe that the main outcomes are. But we also need to see how these leaders are able to execute. Do they have the political room domestically to execute on any promises made? In particular, we know from the U.S. side, President Biden has a lot more constraints on what he can do because of the political season he's in. He's running for the presidency. That means that there are some issues around trade that he cannot touch. It's one of the reasons why fentanyl in this deal was so important for him to talk about, because so many American voters have been impacted by this crisis.
Right. Thank you, Jessica, for joining us on WION and sharing your insights on this. We'll, of course, be closely tracking this here on WION. Thanks very much.